Shocking confession. Carney's minister clueless while immigration chief stumbles in Parliament. Mark Carney's star as Prime Minister has been shaken by notable missteps from his cabinet, raising doubts about whether his government is ready to tackle Canada's pressing challenges. Two ministers have faced significant public embarrassment: Public Safety Minister Gary Anand and Immigration Minister Marie-France Lalonde. Their inability to confidently address core issues has fueled concerns that Carney's Liberals are disconnected from everyday Canadians' realities. Gary Anand recent parliamentary committee appearance was a serious blow to the government's credibility. When pressed about the Restricted Possession and Acquisition License, RPL, and the Canadian Firearms Safety Course, CFSC, fundamental elements in firearm policy, Anand admitted ignorance. He even revealed he never completed the mandatory firearms safety course himself. While he cited his short time on the job as justification, this excuse fell flat for many Canadians. In a time when gun violence is a growing concern, the public demands a minister deeply familiar with firearm regulations from the outset. Opposition leader Pierre Poilievre quickly seized on this, portraying it as emblematic of a government out of touch with Canadian safety concerns. Poilievre argues that if ministers don't understand the basics, how can they be trusted to govern effectively? The immigration portfolio fared no better. Minister Marie-France Lalonde faced sharp questioning in Parliament, particularly from Conservative MP Michelle Rempel-Garner, who highlighted the staggering approval of over 500,000 foreign study permits last year, during a severe housing crisis and labor shortages. Lalonde initially denied these numbers, which were directly sourced from her own department's data. Her subsequent attempts to downplay or explain away the figures as nuanced only deepened doubts about the government's immigration management. This confusion coincides with troubling immigration trends, where Canada is admitting more people than its economy can sustainably absorb. New federal data shows over 817,000 immigrants arrived in Canada between January and April 2025 alone. 132,000 permanent residents, 194,000 international students, and 491,000 work permit holders. These figures far exceed previously stated caps and align with the Century Initiative's aggressive population growth targets. However, only 260,000 jobs were created in the same period. This imbalance intensifies pressure on housing, healthcare, and wages, especially for younger Canadians. Critics say the government's approach to immigration is less about sustainable growth and more about supplying cheap labor for corporate interests, with India now accounting for roughly 25 to 30% of new permanent residents. The debate isn't about race or ethnicity, but about whether Canada's immigration system remains viable and balanced. Pierre Poilievre has capitalized on this narrative, accusing Carney's Liberals of prioritizing corporate donors over working Canadians. His campaign stresses the need for immigration reform that protects Canadian workers and ensures integration, particularly amid a housing affordability crisis. Poilievre's message has gained traction in communities struggling with job scarcity and rising living costs, positioning the Conservatives as a credible alternative focused on restoring economic order and fairness. Carney, known for his financial expertise as former governor of the Bank of England and Bank of Canada, entered politics with high expectations. Yet, these early cabinet blunders have undermined confidence in his leadership. If his ministers continue to falter, questions mount about his ability to build a capable team able to govern effectively during a time of complex economic and social challenges. Further economic woes are spotlighted by Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne's dismissive response to a $7.1 billion merchandise trade deficit in April, Canada's largest ever. When challenged, Champagne called it just one data point, which many saw as dismissive amid factory closures and job losses. The government's failure to outline a clear plan to reverse trade deficits raises fears about Canada's economic resilience and competitiveness. Economic experts warn that without decisive policy changes, including improved trade negotiations and investment in key industries, Canada risks further job losses and weakened industries. Poilievre's conservatives argue the government must act swiftly to protect Canadian jobs and stimulate growth. Regional divides complicate the political landscape further. Alberta, for example, is predicted to overwhelmingly support Danielle Smith's United Conservative Party, UCP, which polls project to win 78 seats compared to the NDP's 9. The Liberals are largely limited to urban centers, illustrating challenges in winning support across diverse regions. Smith's surge signals a demand for stronger leadership focused on economic development and provincial autonomy, contrasting with Carney's faltering federal government. Carney's cabinet faces urgent pressure to regain public trust. Ministers Anand and Lalonde have opportunities to prove their competence through increased transparency and knowledge, but early failures have already damaged their credibility. The opposition is relentless, framing these incidents as proof that the Liberals lack readiness to address Canada's major issues. For the government, transparent communication and decisive policy action are now essential to reverse negative perceptions. For Poilievre, the Liberal struggles offer a strategic opening. His campaign emphasizes pragmatic solutions for housing, immigration, economic recovery, and public safety, drawing sharp contrasts with Liberal mismanagement. This approach resonates strongly with suburban and rural voters who feel overlooked by Ottawa's policies. Poilievre's ability to channel voter frustration into political momentum could define the upcoming election. The next few months will be critical in determining Canada's political trajectory. If Carney's team can improve ministerial competence and deliver policy results, the Liberals might stabilize their support. However, continued confusion and missteps risk accelerating their decline, potentially handing power to the Conservatives. Canadians remain watchful, eager to see whether Carney can turn his government's fortunes around or if these early setbacks will define his tenure. Canada faces immense challenges: a housing crisis, economic uncertainty, public safety concerns, and demographic pressures. Effective governance demands ministers who are not only knowledgeable but responsive to everyday Canadians' needs. So far, Carney's administration has struggled to meet these expectations, underscoring the significant work ahead. Whether Carney and his team can rebuild trust and demonstrate leadership before the next election remains the defining question of his early premiership.